and energy balance, weight control, and eating disorders, screencast 3. This screencast will actually be focusing on how we regulate eating behaviors. The first thing we have to talk about are two terms that are really critical with respect to this concept. They are hunger and appetite, and both of these are behaviors that drive our desire to eat. Hunger, we want to keep in mind here, is the physiological drive to find and eat food. This is a process or drive that's going to be controlled by internal mechanisms such as organs, hormones, hormone-like factors, and the nervous system. Appetite, on the other hand, this is the psychological drive to eat. This is going to be impacted by many external factors such as social customs, the time of the day, the mood someone might be in, sight, and memories. Now here we can look at what specifically are those factors that are impacting hunger and appetite and how to differentiate between the two. First, let's take a look at peripheral body systems. So adipose tissue, stomach, intestines, liver, pancreas, other organs, they also will have an impact on hunger, metabolic influence, blood nutrient levels, energy needs, levels of fat storage, hormones and hormone-like compound secretions, and inadequacy of sleep. Disease states such as obesity, anorexia nervosa, cancer, and mental illness. And then we look at the role that the central nervous system plays, and that's going to be via the hypothalamus, nerve signals, and various neurotransmitters. Now, appetite, on the other hand, if we look at potential disease influences, that could be tumor products. If we look at medication influence, there are another number of medications out there that actually will have an impact on appetite. Some are tranquilizers, some are antidepressants, especially the serotonin reuptake inhibitors, corticosteroids, and amphetamines. Environmental factors such as the availability of food, how are you impacted by the advertising for food, temperature, humidity. If we look at emotional influences, many of us are actual stress eaters, so that actually will be something that causes us to increase our appetite. We might have a sweet tooth or appreciate things that are salty. There are a number of social influences, such as religion and culture. If we look at learned preferences and aversions, this could be due to fat, alcohol, flavors, odors, textures of food. If I look at something in particular that I have an issue with as far as texture, a really good example would be something like cottage cheese. There's something about that. Grits, another one. Cream of wheat. Those are all textures that I really have an issue with, and I'm not able to really consume those particular food items. Now, even though there's internal and external signals that operate simultaneously that lead us to decide should we eat or not eat, we do have the ability to override these signals. Some examples of this might be, you just had a big meal, but you have to have a piece of dessert even though you're really full. Another factor would be ignoring hunger because you have no appetite for the food that's actually being served. Fulfilling these drives bring us to a state known of satiety. We are satisfied and no longer have the drive to eat. And the hypothalamus is where this particular state is regulated. Now, within the hypothalamus, remember, this acts as a bridge between the endocrine and the nervous system, and it plays a big role in the integration of internal cues of blood glucose levels, hormone secretions, and the sympathetic nervous system. If internal signals stimulate the satiety center, we stop eating. If they stimulate the feeding centers, then we are going to eat more. Now, satiety is elicited by a number of things. It could be some of the knowledge that food has been eaten, chewing, sensory aspects of food, the expansion of stomach and intestines. Low energy, dense foods promote satiety. Also, the effects of digestion, absorption, and metabolic processes. Now, there are a number of hormones that have an impact during digestion that shut off hunger. For example, we have cholecystokinin, glucagon-like peptide 1. Those are GLP-1s. They are very much in the news. Ozempic is a really good example of a GLP-1 agonist, and it actually works originally to lower blood glucose and was designed for the type 2 diabetic for glucoregulation. We also have peptide YY3 through 36. The decrease of the hormone ghrelin, this actually will promote short-term satiety. Long-term satiety will be promoted by body composition and the amount of body fat that someone has. Now, adipose tissue also secretes something known as leptin, and this actually reduces the intake of food, which overall will decrease body fat. Now, here we're basically looking at the role of the hypothalamus with respect to satiety. So first we look at the flavor of food, knowing a meal just eaten. There's influence of stomach and intestinal expansion and activity. We see the influence of nutrient use in the liver and related communications with the hypothalamus and other regions of the brain. Then conscious thinking takes place in the brain's cortex, and this is where we can actually overcome hunger or signals of satiety. Now, if we look at some examples of signals to eat, after hours of eating, the concentrations of macronutrients begin to fall, and the body starts to use energy from stores. This causes feelings of satiety to diminish. Endorphins and hormones stimulate appetite and increase food intake. Examples would be cortisol and ghrelin.